Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you in another video. All right, so Lakers. The word lately is just a bunch of conversation talking about Darvin Ham. The Laker heads, all the talking heads that I've been listening to have essentially been breaking down what he's saying after the basketball game and in his exit interview, and just some of the stuff that's been coming out of his mouth has not really been favorable to a lot of people in regards to him holding himself accountable or what have you. And to be honest with you, that accountability, I don't really look for that for him. I really don't. He's one of those individuals that he made a lot of mistakes that he didn't turn from. He had choices that he made that he believed in that didn't work, that a lot of people opposed. And so when people who are listening to him speak are waiting for him to acknowledge those decisions as mistakes, he doesn't see them that way. He didn't see anything wrong with 3-guard lineups. If he did, he would have deviated from it. He didn't see anything wrong with playing Taurean Prince over Max Christie. If he did, he would have played Max Christie and set Taurean. So it's like, when you ask for accountability, the disconnect for a lot of people in situations is understanding what you deem as something they should be sorry for versus what they deem is something they should be sorry for. And if that communication isn't present between two parties, then it's really you waiting for them to give you something that ain't there. And so that's really what it is. You can scold a guy for doing something he believes in, but that ain't going to convince him that he's wrong. It's just going to convince him not to listen to you because you're a hater and a naysayer in his mind. And I think that's how Darvin was taking it. And listening to some of the breakdowns of his statements, essentially how it was broken down was that in one of the statements he said was that basically anybody that is looking at his lineup decisions without taking into account injury issues are not being fair to that circumstance that he was forced to have to deal with. And I somewhat agree with that. You have to take into account that Vando wasn't there, that Wood wasn't there, that Rui missed the first portion of the season with different injuries, multiple injuries, and a lot of people have forgotten Rui was hurt for. We did have some players that played a lot. Obviously, you talk about Austin Reeves playing all 82 games. You talk about LeBron James and Anthony Davis playing over 69 games this year. So we did have some continuity with those main players, but we had quite a few guys who were out. So I give him credit for sticking up for himself in regards to making sure that people understand what he was dealing with was not the full vision of the team. But I think that's part of the problem. If you're not going to be able to do more with less, then you haven't done the job correctly, because that's part of it. Coaches have to be able to find continuity, be able to run their team in a way that gives them the best possible chance to win when things are not as they were dreamt up to be. Injuries, player circumstances, whatever they may be. Sometimes you're just going to have to find a way to win without what you have. And maybe in certain situations, matchups will not be present, but you can't be the deterrent to any type of matchup that would otherwise be present. And I think that's where the disconnect is there. But this becomes basketball philosophy and what you're willing to give up. For him, it's like, I want 3 ball handlers on the floor. I want 3 guards. Well, you're giving up size. And most of us agree that that's a mistake. But if from within his basketball philosophy, that's an okay thing to do. Those are things he's willing to live without, so that he can have the benefits of whatever he sees going down with the 3-guard lineups. So it's like, again, basketball philosophy and art of play and the style of play, it varies from different coaches. So if you have a coach that believes in something that we all deem as wrong, and we think we know how to play the game and we know how the game should be played, when you start realizing that basketball is an artistic form and don't really have a right way to do it, just so long as you have more points than the other team, then it becomes a situation where you have people like myself who think we know the game telling him that we need this on the floor, and he's telling you, no, we don't, because I can win this way and I can prove it, and then he doesn't prove it. You see what I'm saying? He doesn't prove it. Now, if he can find a way to win these games with these small ball lineups, cool. But if he's not winning these matchups, or if he's a net negative, then it becomes a conversation of you're doing things the wrong way. And that's what Darvin Ham is really running into. The game of basketball is a game of matchups, so we believe it to be, until you find a way to bust up that truth somehow. Now, it is yet to be done, but if you can put together Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving and all that, maybe they can bust that up by being so efficient from behind the arc till where it would make it so that his philosophy of putting 3-guard lineups would work. But if you don't have that type of personnel and they can't prove your artistic form to be productive and a winning form, then you have a situation where people like myself, once again, are telling you you're doing things the wrong way. And that's what Darvin's running into. He has basketball philosophies that the common 2024 basketball fan is going to say are just flat out wrong. But he ain't going to agree with that. He sees basketball his way. They pay him millions of dollars to coach the team. So obviously that's a lot of confidence behind his philosophy, in a sense that somebody thought he was excellent at it, or they wouldn't have given him that much money to do it. So that allows him to turn off the noise as it pertains to people who are genuinely criticizing him for doing things the wrong way. He just has to prove that crap works. And because he was unable to, we can point at him and say, yo, you need to get the hell out of here. But as far as me thinking the way that I do, looking at him doing what he does, I can't in good faith say that I'm expecting him to hold himself accountable. Because the reality is I have to first believe that he thinks he did something wrong. And I actually don't believe he thinks that. Do I think he did something wrong? Plenty. Plenty. And maybe he made some mistakes that he should hold himself accountable for. But as it pertains to his lineup choices, you have to first come to the conclusion that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. There are things that I believe in basketball-wise. Doesn't mean it's the right way. It just means that I believe in it. And I think it should be done because it gives me the best possible chance to win in the games that I've witnessed being played. I think you do better with size on the floor. I think you do better with matchups a certain way. I think this, that, and the third. I've also seen a lot of things I believe in not work out. I've seen stuff that I absolutely am against win. and then I'm stuck sitting there saying, well, if he would have did what I wanted to do, we would have lost. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Too many times for me, again, in good faith, to just kind of go along with the narrative of there's a right way and a wrong way to do things in basketball as it pertains to lineup and rotations. I believe there is. You could definitely put people in positions to do things the wrong way. Having a center out there trying to play point guard when he can barely dribble or pass, definitely certain things you can do that just put people in the worst position to show their strengths and the best position to expose their weaknesses. That could be considered the wrong way. And I think a lot of what Darvin did may have done that. But if he can prove he can win doing it consistently, especially, then not only will it not be the wrong way, but it'll be what other people copy. And I've been watching basketball long enough to know that. It'll be what people copy, man. And the game is continuing to evolve. And if you can come up with something new that works, then what you do will be the right way. And then people will be scolding people for doing it the way that they're doing it now, instead of doing it your way. You see the game morph into various different things. You go from a big man's game to a three-point shooter's game to everybody wants a point guard, to all this type of stuff like that, to 3-guard lineups. You see triangle offense work for many years, and then people deviate from it as if it never worked at all. You see a guy do a sky hook, be one of the greatest players to ever do it, and then nobody else ever copy it. It's just so many different ways of looking at this thing that we call basketball, this art form, to where once we start talking about the right way and the wrong way to play, I just feel like there's There's too many different things in that way that I've seen that make me say, nah, that's not actually what it is. A lot of people are caught up in what they think should be done right now, but that doesn't mean that somebody can't bust it up by doing something completely opposite, and then everybody try to do that. So Darvin, for me, is not the greatest head coach, because at the end of the day, you are in this era, and you got to be able to match up with what is going on down on the basketball floor against you. If you can't match up with what's in front of you, and you lose because of it, then whether we agree that you're doing things the right way or the wrong way, you gave me the wrong results. And because you gave me the worst results of the undesired results, I would prefer to replace you with somebody that I believe can give me the better look there. And so that's really what it comes down to. It would be nice if Darvin Ham saw the game the way I see it, or the way, you know, a lot of pundits see it. But we got to know the difference between that scope and the scope of somebody just completely doing things the wrong way. You got to define it properly. And so that's why I'm here, to try to help people see my angle when it comes to that. I just can't expect Darvin Ham to see himself doing anything wrong when this is a canvas, like an art canvas. You can do whatever you want. You just better get it right. You better win when doing it. And that brings me to a whole nother thought. That center that's coming out, what's his name? I can't think of the young fella's name. Edey. I think it's Zach Edey. A lot of people think that he's not going to be able to play in this league because the game is, the right way to play is to stretch the floor, and he has to be able to guard the perimeter and all these different things. But I'm going to tell you like this. I don't believe Zach Edey's a bad guy in regards to trying to draft him somewhere in the middle of the first round to late round. I haven't done a whole lot of homework on it, but judging by what I've seen in college, I think he's a good bet to kind of bust that up. Why? Because he's dominant and aggressive. And he's 7'4", being dominant and aggressive. As we said with Darvin Ham, what are you willing to give up? Well, if you're willing to give up some of what goes on around the perimeter for the dominance and the draw of foul calls that come from having to deal with a guy like that, and his rebounding on both sides of the floor, which is going to give you extra possessions, then you could play him 48 minutes and just live with whatever he doesn't give you and benefit from what he does. It's all about what you want to give up. What do you want to leave open? What can you live without? Because there's plenty of... Let's get past this. There are plenty of players who are going to fit the mold of what you're looking for, but because they spread the floor, they're not going to be in there mucking it up, drawing fouls like this guy is. Because they're not 7'4", they're not going to rebound the ball as much as he may be able to. Now the question is, can he keep up with the speed? But will it matter if he's drawing fouls the way I think in theory he may be able to? It may not matter. If Zubac can play in this league, Zach Edey can play in this league. If Bismack Biyombo can play in this league, Zach Edey can play in this league. Like I said, I got more homework to do on that kid. But I listened to somebody say, I don't remember who it was, but they said, I think it might have been Gilbert Arenas. He said, Zach Edey's going to get some GM fired if he take him because that kid can't play in today's league. You're assuming today's league going to stay the way it is. You're assuming that the way they play right now ain't going to change again. And I'm telling you, you bring in somebody who can bust that up. And as I said, people going to start chasing down what otherwise can do that. And for me, when I look at Wemby being in the game, Alperen Sengun being in the game, granted those guys can shoot the ball. Zach Edey's not shooting the ball. But you see the centers that are coming into this league, you're going to want a center. Whether he can shoot the ball or not, you're going to want somebody taller than everybody else to get the ball quicker than everybody else at the highest point, to get easy buckets, which is one of the most important things that doesn't get talked about enough. Easy damn buckets and foul drawing, which is what I think Zach Edey's going to do a lot of. So it's like, nah, man, look, if all things are what I think they are, having not done all the homework I'd like to do on this kid, but listen to enough people talk about him, I would not mind seeing him gone at 17 with the Lakers. If he's there, and I don't love everything around that area, I'm going to consider taking him. Because I think that at the end of the day, this league could potentially go back to a big man's league with all these big dudes coming around and all this small ball just flat out not getting it done. You got all these small ball teams, all these 3-guard lineups, coaches and stuff, and they're getting fired because of the lack of size. If they have that size, they don't have those problems. And then you want to tell me a guy like Zach Edey can't play in the league because he can't guard the perimeter? Who the hell's going to guard him? You're giving something up. You feel me? And if I have enough Jalen McDaniels and players like that around the perimeter who can defend, I got enough of them Dylan Brooks type dudes who can get out to the 3-point line, I may be able to give up his perimeter defensive issues for the sake of the rebounding and the easy buckets and the foul drawing that he may be able to provide. So no, I'm not against bringing in Zach Edey. I think because of his height and his aggressiveness, he could potentially be a game changer. In a sense that now you're probably going to put somebody on the floor who may not be able to defend the perimeter on your side, try to stop him. Instead of enjoying that spacing and then getting killed on the boards every 5 minutes, you're going to have to find you a big guy to adjust to what he's doing down there when he's going for 20 and 20. So, like that's why I'm looking like, yo, for those who think Shaq couldn't play in this era just because he didn't shoot the 3 or guard the perimeter like that, man, you didn't know nothing about what Shaq was doing in the era he was in. He would have dominated these dudes so damn bad. He would have dominated the hell out of this era right now. The only thing that would have hurt Shaq is how soft the era actually is. He'd have been called for fouls significantly more than he was in his era. But I could argue that's in place because of him. Because he used to dish out so much damn punishment on the offensive end, and all these players that had to guard him were having a difficult time with that. So many of them probably complained about that. Like, yo, he's throwing elbows. He's putting us in a position where we're getting pushed around and they're not calling offensive fouls. That's what he does. That was his gift. He was bigger, stronger, and had a motor and was significantly more intelligent than a lot of them. So they couldn't do nothing with him. Well, I'm telling you, Zach Edey may be able to affect the game the same way if he plays his best and continues to be as aggressive as he was in college. If he continues to be who he was in college, in the pros, they're going to have to deal with him too. So that's what I'm saying to all of y'all. Don't be so certain that if you let him fall too far in the draft, he won't be one of the best picks in the draft. You let him fall to 2025 and he stays healthy, that's like the pick in the draft right there. Just depends on how the coach wants to use him, how well he takes to the NBA, and if the coach believes in what he brings to the table is worth leaving open what otherwise he cannot defend. If you don't mind leaving open what he cannot defend, then you create problems on the other end for the other team who has to try to figure out how to stop what he brings to the table. So it's all about what you're willing to give up in that sport. And I think in this spread the offense era, we've lost sight of that. Everybody trying to copy, the right way is to spread the floor. Until you realize all them damn shooters going to have to try to figure out how to stop this big mammoth of a human being. And they only got 6 fouls to do it. Now all them damn shooters that you want on the floor, they can't space the floor if they ain't on the floor, friend. And that's exactly what a guy like Shaq or Zach Edey would do to them. Every time, it's barbecue chicken. And if they don't get physical with him in the paint, and one. You got to wrap him up. Both hands. You see what I'm saying? How many of them shooters at a high level going to stay on the floor? Are we not going to be exposing your bench if that happens too many times? That's one of the reasons why, as I look back on my Laker team this season, I feel frustrated about how we didn't give the ball to Anthony Davis more in the paint. Because that's the dynamic that you open up. You can have all these damn shooters you want, but they got to play defense. And guess what's happening on the defensive end if you don't wrap up my big guy? And one. Score, buckets, easy buckets, easy buckets, easy buckets. That's why Jokic is so impossible to guard, because he can kill you in the paint, he can pass the ball around, he can shoot the ball. He has that dynamic on top of all the other stuff that most centers don't have. He's passing like Magic Johnson, but he can score in the paint with any of them. And if you don't wrap him up and force yourself into foul trouble trying to deal with him in the paint, he'd go for 25, 30 points in the paint. So you trying to tell me I shouldn't want a guy like Zach Edey because of floor spacing when I got to deal with him? Hell no. Give me Zach Edey so I can get Jokic in foul trouble. Because if I keep putting the ball in the paint on Jokic with Edey, Edey got the size to shoot over him and force him to defend. Just like we saw AD have success against Jokic in that way. You got to force Jokic into being a defender and, most importantly, a physical fouler. And the only way you're going to have that is not going to be with floor spacing. Floor spacing ain't going to give you that, friend. You're going to need all of that. You need somebody who could be aggressive, who's bigger than him, forcing him to be physical with them on the defensive end. So tell me Zach Edey ain't no good for this league? Again, please tell me that. Because I'm telling you that I see exactly where he can help. And so that's what I'm telling people, man. There's no right way to play this game. It's just results. If I can run around a bunch of little guys against a bunch of big dudes and somehow win, then you're probably going to be looking for a bunch of little dudes. If I can run a bunch of centers out there and find that I can win that way, I start dominating the league that way, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go out and find all kinds of centers. We've already seen this a million times. If you're old enough to remember the old school, then you've seen the game change too much to think that this era is the right way to play. It's not the right way to play. It's just what worked last time. And so now everybody's copying everybody else. The same dynamic that I saw Shaq handle in the past is the same dynamic I think Shaq would handle today. He's stomping, he's pushing, he's dunking. And if you do not foul him, he's scoring. When you do foul him, he's scoring. If you ain't strong enough. And a lot of these perimeter floor spaces ain't strong enough. And maybe 3 is more than 2. That's only if the 3-point shooter's on the floor to shoot. If they're in foul trouble sitting on the bench, guess what? No shooters. So I already know how to bust up y'all pretty little game. I'm forcing them shooters to foul me. Video 44. I thank y'all for watching. Wow.